Hey guys, this is an intro to solving equations, and we'll also be talking a little bit about vocabulary. So let's start off by labeling an equation. This right here is an equation, and we know it's an equation because it has this equal sign. Without that equal sign, it is just an expression. An expression is a representation of some type of quantity. An equation is always telling us that two expressions are equal. So we're looking right here at the left side of our equation is 5 plus 7x. That is an expression, and our equation is saying that it is equal to 19, which in and itself is also an expression. So we're going to go ahead and label this. Our equation has something that we do not know, an unknown. We know that this 5 is a 5, a 7 is a 7, 19 is a 19, but what we do not know, we don't know the quantity of this, is x. Okay, so our variable is a symbol, and in math, most times we use letters to represent some quantity, some amount that we do not know. What is connected to our variable, always right next to our variable connected, is what we call a coefficient. Okay, so when we see a number and a letter that are side by side like this, they are being multiplied. In our equation, again, we have the left side, which is equal to the right side. Both of these two sides, they're each expressions. And an expression can be something that looks like 5 plus 7x. It could just be a variable, a letter by itself to represent some quantity, or it could be a number by itself. All right, the important thing to know is that an expression does not have an equal sign. It doesn't show that two things are equal. That is, this equal sign tells us that this is an equation that we're looking at. And inside our expressions and inside our entire equation, we have terms. Each of these are a term. So 19 is a term, 5 is a term, this 7x is a term. It's what is around being separated by either an equal sign, a plus, or a minus. All right, so I like to think of it as chunks. How many of these chunks do we have? We have 3 chunks in this equation. We have 3 terms. Our equation is broken up into a left side and a right side. Those are our expressions. Our variable is something that we do not know. It's always going to be our letter, and the number that is connected to our variable is our coefficient. And we know that these two things are being multiplied. Let's look at the back of our notes and kind of do some practice here. We're going to be circling each variable. I'm actually going to highlight it. So for each problem, I'm going to highlight in orange what our variable is. Again, our variable is going to be a symbol representing some quantity that we do not know. And in math, we typically use a letter. So my variable right here for 3x plus 4 is 10. What I do not know is this x, the value of this x. 15 equals 2 plus 3y. I do not know what this y is. That is our symbol. That's our variable. Here I have a g right there and a g right here. They're both variables. Our next one, my variable is an h. This one, my variable is a p. And right here, it shows it 4 times, which is okay. Those 4 t's are my variables. The total number of terms. So again, I like to think of my terms as how many chunks are there. So my first equation, I have 1, 2, 3, I have 3 terms. My next one, 1, 2, 3, 3 terms. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. And my last one, 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we're looking at our coefficient. Our coefficient is going to be the number connected to our variable. So my variable right here is x. What is connected to this x? A 3. My next variable is y. What is connected to my y? Also 3. This time I have 2 variables, the same variable. I have a 4, which is my coefficient to this g, and then I have a -2. This negative is going to come along. This -2 is the coefficient for this g. So I'm going to write both of them just separated by a comma. My next one is h, and the variable number connected is -2. My next one is p, and the variable, it's okay if it's a fraction, it is 1/2. And then this one's a little bit tricky. I know right here this variable is 3. If there's nothing, this coefficient is 3. If there's nothing connected to our variable, it's actually going to be a 1, right? This is just a single t. I can see that this is just a single t, right? It's really a 1t, so this does have a variable of 1. Now let's see if we can determine whether these right here are expressions or equations. Now remember, an expression is just a representation of some quantity. It could be numbers, it could be variables, it could be numbers and variables, though an equation is telling us that two of those things are equal. So if it has an equal sign, it has two variables, two expressions, one side on the left, one side on the right, it is an equation. So what I'm really looking for is that equal sign. There's an equal sign right here. So this one is an equation. There is no equal sign. This is just a -5x. This is an expression. This one has an equal sign, equation. This one has an equal sign as well, also an equation. This number, 22, that is a representation of a quantity. There's no equal sign. It is just an expression. This one as well, there is no equal sign, also an expression. One last thing that I wanted to talk about with equations is understanding that an equation is showing that two values are equal. One way to think about this is a hanger. Another way to think about it is a scale, a balanced scale. So when we have our equal sign in our equation, this is where we can put our equal sign, right in the middle of our scale. And we can see that the scale here has 3 red dots on both sides. We know that those are equal. So what happens if I took one red dot away from this side? Is it still equal? Well, now we would have this side coming down a little bit, right? It wouldn't be a balanced scale. This right side would be a little bit heavier. So what do I have to do to keep this equation balanced? Well, if I took a red dot away from this side, I would have to take a red dot away from this side to keep the balance the same. So later on in my other videos, when I review solving equations, you have to remember that an equation has to stay balanced. And what we do to one side, we have to do to the other side. So what if we had this scale right here? Is this scale balanced? It is not balanced because we have 4 red dots on this side and we only have 3 red dots on this side. So if I had brought this 4th red dot in, right, I added 1 red dot, the scale wouldn't be balanced anymore because now this side would be heavier. So how do I keep the scale balanced? Well, if I added a red dot in over there, I would have to add another red dot in on my right side to keep my scale balanced. So what I do to one side of this balance scale, I'd have to do to the other side to keep it balanced. Same for equations. What I do to one side of the equation, I have to do to the other side. All right, so keep on watching. Watch my next videos on solving equations. I will review solving equations with addition and subtraction and solving equations with multiplication and division. Hope this helps a little bit with our little intro to solving equations and reviewing our vocabulary.